Hey guys, it's Ornlu, and we are back with another multiplayer tier list, not actually campaigns, more freeform, no script, Ornlu a ramble, but we're going to be revisiting my 1v1 arena tier list, as last time I did that was around a year ago, and the meta has changed a bunch since then, and we have the Masters Arena 6 tournament, which is upcoming, which is all arena, and then we have the Open Classic, which was just announced a few days ago as I'm recording this, and that will feature arena and as part of the map pool, so I just thought that this would be a very appropriate time to revisit the old tier list. So with that said, this is of course all just going to be like my opinion, man, so this isn't like, super hardcore set in stone. This is, how you should play the game. And arena in general is fairly balanced these days. I feel pretty comfortable going, random civ on arena and, feeling like I can get a fairly good matchup. But of course, some civs are better than others. I do believe that the civs in S tier, I think, are pretty set, and that like these are the best civs. And I think most other people in the community, who play a lot of arena would agree with me. A tier is just like, okay, you don't have access to all of these civs. These are still really strong civs, but they may have some weak matchups or be weak to certain things. B tier civs, middle of the road civs, you can totally, play them and be fine in a lot of situations, but they either just don't quite have that high of a power level, like they don't just really shine that much in the sorts of things that we see on arena, or they do shine in some areas a lot, but then just have some really, really insurmountable weaknesses. C tier civs are the civs that are like, you don't really want to play, but you can kind of make work in some situations, and then D tier civs are the sad civs. Oh yeah, so I just want to note that I'm not going to be ordering the civs within the specific tier list, like within the same tier, just because more than most maps, arena is a lot about style, in terms of there are a lot of different ways you can sort of play out the game, and one person's like top of S tier might be like bottom of S tier. I helped Viper work on his top 5 arena civs video a little while back with T West, and for that we interviewed a bunch of like top players, and there was a fair amount of variance between like the top civs, and I think that can kind of go throughout the entire tier list as well. Also, this particular tier list I'm using doesn't have Sicilians and Burgundians on it, but I still like it, and kind of like I did I think with the economy tier list, I will just be tacking them on at the very end. So with all of that preamble out of the way, let's just dive into this, and hopefully I will not be rambling too much, but, well, we'll see. Starting with Aztecs, S tier, always have been. You could maybe make an argument for A tier, but I still feel like Aztecs are just one of the best civs out there. They do have some awkward matchups, but yeah, your ability to put pressure in this very sort of set meta, which I guess I should explain. Scout meta into booming is just very much the norm. Masters Arena will have a slightly modified version of the map, which should, in theory, promote more aggression, but we'll see how that actually plays out. But Aztecs, they can do that whole aggression thing so well. You just make a barracks. You can still go market blacksmith and build a barracks. Like, that's not too much of an issue, so you can have that market early on to help you out. And then, of course, you have amazing monks. Eagles are great, and then, you steamroll them with a good eco and all the relics and stuff. It's Aztecs. It's, they're always great on arena. Berbers, unfortunately, going into the D tier. They don't really have much of an eco bonus, as in they have, like, no eco bonus. The faster moving villagers is not that big of a deal. And then the units they want to go for, camel archers, hussars, like, lots of very mobile units, and those tend to not do so well on arena because the map is so constricted. And it sort of leaves them vulnerable to very strong infantry and siege pushes, especially from civs that have better economies than them. And that can just be really, really tough for them to deal with. They actually do have the tech tree to deal with that. I mean, they have fully upgraded champions. They do have access to gunpowder, but you're missing siege ram, and you're missing Arbalest, which is a nice early imp option, and yeah, there are generally better civs out there. I mean, it's not like Berbers are hopeless, but they're just not really amazing. Britain's definitely an S tier civ. Now, Britons are kind of polarizing, I guess, in that they do have some really awkward matchups, especially against civs that have very, strong siege rams and stuff like that. but they also have a ton of very oppressive matchups against civs that don't really deal with, super long-range archers very well. And Arena is just a map that plays to all of Britain's strengths. You have the Dark Age eco bonus with the faster working shepherds, and then the Castle Age eco bonus with the cheaper town centers. You just go, right into the fast castle play, drop a bunch of town centers. You can go scouts, you can go crossbowmen. Scouts are still a little bit more common, I would say. But then early Imperial Age, you can just go for your arbalests and then switch into longbowmen. Warwolf trebuchets are insane in late game. You can really just destroy enemy ranged units, and you can also win like every Treb war. And their army is so slow, but on a map like Arena, you don't have to worry about mobility. So you can just, slowly creep across the map and then, destroy all opposition. Still a very, very good civ. Bulgarians. I'm actually going to be putting them in A tier. I think they are pretty good. Your eco bonus isn't amazing. You have cheaper stone cost on the town centers. And you don't have gunpowder. But you do have a lot of strong other options. You have your Cavalier with stirrups, which you can make use in like early Imperial Age, and then you have your swordsmen with the extra armor, fully upgraded halberdiers. You can get into siege much more easily due to the upgrades costing minus 50% food. That's especially helpful for early siege ram pushes, and it makes that switch into siege onagers much easier. And you just have a lot of very strong options as Bulgarians when it comes to like your late game power units. You are going to be a bit more vulnerable to strong ranged civs. Like Bulgarians are going to have a bad matchup against like Britons, but you still have a ton of very strong matchups. Your Hussars aren't going to be as useful here because, again, mobility isn't as important on Arena, but you still have the fully upgraded Halberdiers, Amazing Siege. Konniks can be useful, Kreposts can be useful. So yeah, there's just a good all-around civ. Burmese. I'm actually going to put them in B tier. They kind of fell a long way from the days of the Double Castle Arambai stuff, but now with that Arambai, like, they're good in mass, but that's not really what you wanted with them on, like, Arena. You just kind of wanted, like, snowball stuff super hard, and especially you wanted to delete buildings, and you can't really do that as much anymore. And the Civ is just incredibly weak to strong ranged options. You do have good monks, and you do have, like, great halberdiers, but it's just, you run into any decent ranged unit Civ, and you just have no idea what to do in early Imperial Age, because there is nothing good for you to do. You can get your battle elephants, with extra pierce armor and stuff, but they're so slow to get up and running, and even then they're still vulnerable to a halberdier switch, or even just some monks. So yeah, Burmese, I can't really justify putting them above B tier. Still, Arambai can be good. Your mass monk clown stuff can be good, but it's just not something that's, I think, it's not a very solid gameplay sort of thing. Yeah. Byzantines, S tier. Byzantines are just really great on Arena. They have very few, if any, bad matchups. Cataphracts are much easier to get into these days due to their cheaper upgrade cost. And then, cheaper Imperial Age, you can keep up with, even the very strong eco civs in that regard. And then you just have like a bajillion late game options, and, it's Byzantines, right? Their lack of a super strong eco bonus isn't as big of a deal on Arena, especially because the meta these days is all about Imperial Age timings. And Byzantines, it's like they have a budget eco bonus, and that they can keep up in that Imperial Age timing with a lot of other civs, and then they can sort of get their trash armies going more quickly. Again, thanks to that discount. So Byzantines, definitely a solid S tier option. Celts. A tier, very reminiscent of Bulgarians, except that Celt Siege is better, and their eco is better, but their cavalry is a bit worse. Infantry, I guess they're kind of just good in different ways. Celts will still struggle against civs that like very good gunpowder options, and you don't have good monks, which is kind of annoying, but still, good eco. Missing bombard cannon does hurt a lot. But other than that, your siege is fantastic, and it's Celts, right? You boom, you steamroll them with a bunch of infantry and siege units. Good boom, yeah, all that stuff. Good civ. Not S tier, though. Chinese, B tier. It's a civ with an S tier eco, and they have a very broad tech tree, and they even have a very strong late game with Chukonu and Bombard Towers and all that stuff, but you just die so hard to siege onagers. And guess what? Siege onagers are very common on Arena. It's It's just really sad for the Civ. They have like nothing at all to deal with that. You kind of have to rely on like light cav sniping them, but even then, that's not a very guaranteed thing. You just can get absolutely flattened by siege onagers. Great eco, but unfortunately will just die super hard in certain matchups, like versus Celts, like versus Bulgarians. Cumans, A tier. This is always going to be a weird one, though. It's such a weird civ. You can get an amazing eco, and your Kipchak pressure into like quick Imperial Age out off of 2 TCs, that play is really, really hard to stop if executed well. Chances are, though, it will not be executed well, though, because almost nobody plays them. But it's something that you still have to, keep an eye out for. You also have the Feudal Age Ram aggression thing, which isn't really as good, but it's something that you always have to keep in mind. And then, late game, you do have Paladins, I guess. You have Halberdiers fully upgraded. Kipchaks in mass can do work, but you really, really, really need that mass to be effective. Definitely not an S tier civ, but you have Siege Ram, you do have Siege Onager even without Siege Engineers, so you can make them work. Ethiopians. Gonna be another A tier civ. So nice thing with Ethiopians is that you don't need to mine any gold to go for your Castle Age because you get the extra 100 food and gold upon reaching the next stage. So you start with 100 gold, you don't get Loom early on in Arena, and then, you just get the 200 gold and click up to Castle Age, even get the extra food. You can get a pretty strong uptime. This can help give you map control, go for your relics more quickly, or you can just use it to boom even faster. It gives you at least something of an okay-ish economy when you wouldn't really be having that in mid-game on Arabia. And then, of course, your late game it's very fragile, but it's very strong. You can go for the early Imperial Age Arbalest play, and that's really good with Ethiopians, of course. You have amazing siege with the torsion engines and all that stuff, which you can get to. Showtells can be situationally useful, especially against Eagle Warrior civs. And then, of course, you have Halberdiers and all that good stuff. Like, strong late game. Not quite Britain level good, but they are still a very strong option. Franks, also going to be in A tier. I'm kind of like iffy on Franks. The cheap castles can be very nice for just spamming everywhere. And you do have a good eco, and your whole sort of scout play into late game is very streamlined. Like, Franks are just a very streamlined civ. And you do have gunpowder, and I think that's probably like the most important thing. You have access to bombard cannons, hand cannoneers, I guess, as well, but mostly bombard cannons. It's like one of the most important things to have on Arena. You can have decent matchups against a lot of civs in that way. The big downside is that your skirmishers are terrible. In general, your anti-ranged options are not very good, except for Paladins. And Paladins on Arena, you can get to them, but they just die so hard to mass Halberdier, and you don't really have that maneuverability in a lot of situations. They can be good, don't get me wrong. Throwing Axemen can be great against Hal pushes and all that stuff, but definitely not S tier, but I still think they're probably a bit above B tier. I'd still think that Franks are a bit more consistent than Burmese or Chinese. Goths going to be going into C tier. They don't really get an eco bonus. On open maps, you get the extra villager in like late Dark Age because you get Loom instantly. So in the time that you would otherwise be researching Loom, you can get like an extra villager and still get, the same Feudal Age time as your opponent. But you don't really have that on Arena because Loom is not something you get until very late. And then you can go for your boom into Goth spam, but it's so predictable. And just, if a civ has a good answer to it, like a bunch of them do, then you're just running into a brick wall, and you will fall behind economically against like almost every decent civ. Like, Goths have an absolutely awful matchup against a civ like Celts or Bulgarians, or Byzantines, or Aztecs. Like, it's just not so great. But they're still better than D tier, because you do have some matchups against like archer-heavy civs that it can be really hard to stop Goths if you can, get them up and running. Huns, unfortunately, going to be in D tier. They're a civ that loves aggression and open maps, and Arena is neither of those things. It's just a map that plays not at all to the Hun strengths. Do have a good eco, can maybe make mass cav archers work in terms of like snowballing an advantage, but still not really something that you're going to be wanting to play on the map. Incas, B tier. Don't have much of an eco bonus. I mean, like, your eco is like, you have a little bit of a boost, but it's not anything amazing. You do have the option to go for Eagle Scouts, which, like I said, being able to go barracks, blacksmith, market, and then just add in some Eagle Scouts to your monks is really, really handy. And in Castle Age, they are better than Scout Cavalry in a straight-up fight. But still, Aztecs are kind of like, they do everything Incas would want to do here, but better, except for Incas do have a more fleshed-out tech tree than any of the other two American civs, but they still lack that sort of power unit, and having access to that sort of power unit is really important on a map like Arena. And no gunpowder, no bombard cannons is a really big issue if you are up against siege onagers and stuff like that. Aztecs, they have super tanky monks that can even survive a siege onager hit with, block printing and all that stuff. Incas don't really have that going for them as much. So, I mean, they're not bad. They certainly can make a lot of stuff work. They have those strong counter units, but it's not something that I feel is as consistent as these A-tier civs. Indians, D-tier. Yeah. Your boom is fairly strong with your cheap villagers, except it doesn't really get you ahead as much as it allows you to make scouts and then villagers at the same time in early Castle Age. Maybe get a faster Imperial Age time, but you don't really get resources in any faster. At least usually. And then, you want to be going for camels, but those die really hard to halberdiers, and yeah, you have cav archers or maybe even elephant archers if you're feeling wild. It just feels like there are better options out there for a lot of situations on Arena, so I really can't put them higher than D tier. It's like, these civs are all, cavalry-centric, camel, cav archer, that whole sort of thing, and that's just not something that Arena lends itself to. Italians, A tier. Yeah, Italians, they're just pretty strong. You have the cheaper uptime, which is just helpful in getting a quick Castle Age. You can use it for aggression or for booming, kind of like with Ethiopians. You can go for your fast imp arbalest play. Cheaper gunpowder is nice. For bombard cannons, condos can be situationally useful. They're not a civ that's the most exciting in the world when it comes to Arena, but that doesn't mean they're bad. They have good monks, they have gunpowder, they have strong archers. Genoese crossbowmen can be really sick against cavalry. Missing halberdier and missing siege ram is kind of a bummer, and you do lack that sort of persistent eco bonus, but they're still good. They're not the flashiest civ out there, but they're still good. Japanese, probably B tier as well. You do have good monks, and you can go for some really, really fast aggressive monk plays due to the cheaper drop-off site, saving you a bunch of wood early on. But you still lack that sort of inherent power unit, kind of like Incas. Catapulto trebs can be nice, but you miss bombard cannon, which is really unfortunate. Your halbs can be nice, but then again, just super strong archer civs with better economies can just kind of run you over. Yeah, I mean, they're fine, they're alright, but I think Italians are better as that sort of generic flexible civ sort of thing. So yeah, they're going to be going in B tier. Khmer. Also going to be in B tier. It's a very similar story between Khmer and Chinese. Both have insanely good economies. Both do have good late games. Both die super hard to good siege onager civs. Khmer Scorpions just get wrecked so hard by siege onagers. And then, okay, you can go for your elephants, but those will just get... Halb siege onager annihilates Scorpion plus elephant, even if you can get that up and running. You do have arbalests as an opening, potentially in early Imperial Age, but even then, other civs do that whole sort of thing better, like Ethiopians or maybe even Italians, Byzantines, Britons, even Aztecs. Yeah. I mean, they're decent, they're all right, but they're not really that sort of top-tier civ. Koreans were also going to be a B tier. They just don't really have that much of an eco. War wagons can be insane. Double castle war wagon is actually a thing. It can really wreck you if you're not careful. But you are a very, very slow civ. Your siege onagers can be great, and it's not like they're not bad, but you can just fall behind to civs that will just out economy EU, and especially if they get a faster Imperial Age, you lose your castles, you lose your war wagon production. You do have bombard cannons, but no siege ram. I mean, they're all right. I think they're probably a bit more consistent than a lot of these civs, but they just don't really have that power spike, that eco bonus to really land them in these higher tiers, or really that flexibility. Lithuanians, S tier. Yeah, they if you get those relics, yeah, you can make cavalry work. Doesn't matter if cavalry isn't as inherently good on arena. If you have +4 on your paladins or Lee side, then yeah, go kill them. They can go for a very quick castle age with their extra starting food. Your monasteries work faster, that sort of gives you even more of an advantage. Your spearman moves faster, that gives you even more of an advantage. Really, really good at just taking map control early on and then just using that to give you the momentum you need to sort of survive your mid game. Because like late Castle Age, early Imperial Age is really where Lithuanians are going to struggle because they don't have an eco bonus, they don't have arbalests, and they can kind of just die to some really strong timings like against certain civs. So it's not like Lithuanians are flawless, but they are just such a strong civ, and if you let them get all 4 relics, or at least 4 relics, it's going to be pretty rough for you. Oh, you also have really good halberdiers and skirmishers in late game, which is nice. Like, you can just open skirmishers as Lithuanians against archer civs, and you just 10 pierce armored is just real rough for arbalests to overcome because they're only dealing 1 damage. Magyars are going to be actually our only second C tier civ. Kind of like Huns, except Magyars have a way better late game. With Magyar Hussars, their cav archers with 1 more attack and range are really, really sick. Cheaper scouts can also be pretty helpful in early Castle Age. I can't really put them above C tier, but they are kind of like a better version of Huns in a lot of situations when it comes to arena. Huns are a bit faster. They're a lot faster in terms of like anything past like early feudal age, but I still think that Magyars are going to be better in these more closed maps. Malay! Viper had them as his number 1 arena civilization, and I can certainly see why. They are just really insane economically and have all the tools you need in a good arena civ. You will end up around 5 villagers ahead of your opponent if you both go for a fast castle. Like, that is absolutely insane. Your eco is better than almost every other civ in the game on arena. But unlike a civ like Chinese or Khmer, these guys, they have fully upgraded arbalests, they have bombard cannons, they have bombard towers even. Karambits can be insane. I won a couple games on arena post-buff with Karambits when they now have 8 attack with the elite upgrade. It's really good. And then you have trash 2-handed swordsmen, you have fully upgraded elite skirmishers, Malay elephants now with the 40% discount might be able to be used in certain situations. And yeah, they're just a really, really underrated civ, I would say, by a lot of people in general, just because they are a bit trickier to play. I would recommend going for uptime like 30-31 population, and then just going fast castle from there. You do need a little bit of adjustment, but you can definitely make it work. Very, very strong civ on arena is Malay. Malian's going to be going into C tier. They're a civ that doesn't really love post-Imperial Age that much because you miss a lot of those important Imperial Age upgrades like Bracer, like Halberdier, like Siege Ram. You don't really have a super strong sort of inherent gold option except for cavalry-ish, but then again, that's not usually the best option on arena. You do have a good eco, you do have good monks, but I kind of would prefer a civ that is just a bit stronger overall in terms of late-game options. Well, just Imperial Age options in general, which Malians don't really have as much of. Mayans going to be going into B tier. They used to be like one of the very, very best arena civs, but the meta has changed. You can still go for Eagle Warriors, but going like Fast Castle Plumes is generally just going to put you too far behind economically, and you die really hard to Strong Siege Onager and Infantry civs, but still, Mayans snowballing in late game with just massive amounts of plumed archers, making a surprise Eagle Warrior switch, even though I don't know how that's a surprise at this point, but still, it can be really deadly. Great eco. Just kind of a little one-dimensional to be put anywhere above B tier. Mongols, also going to be B tier. You can go for like a really fast feudal age, get the quick eco upgrades, and then go for like a pretty fast castle age time from there. I'm not sure how good that is actually. But you do have good light cav. It's pretty common these days to get the light cav upgrade for contesting relics. And then, of course, you have Mangudai and Siege in the late game, and that just kills a lot of stuff. So it's like, they're not bad for sure, but they are really slow past mid-game. Like, the transition to Mangudai is really slow, and if you're behind because you don't have your mid-game eco bonus and your opponent's faster to Imperial Age, they start trebbing down your castles, you can't make Mangudai, and then you're dead. So it's a tricky balance with the civ, but it's not bad. Persians, C tier. Cavalry, not the greatest on arena, as I've been saying. You do have a very strong economy, But if you're not going for like paladins or camels or something, you don't really have a sort of natural early Imperial Age option. Like you can go Halbram, but it's like, other civs do that better. You do have trash bows, which can be really nice in late game. War elephants can legitimately see play in late game on Arena, but I still feel like I prefer other civs that kind of just do the same thing, but better in a lot of cases. Portuguese, A tier. You do have the faster researching text, which can be quite nice. The fast Imp Feitoria play is a legitimate thing. And then, of course, just like mass organ guns can be insanely hard to stop with a ton of civilizations, because if you can't kill them easily with mangonels, then you are going to be in for a very rough time. Cheaper gold cost on units is very nice as the game goes on, but still, you do lack that consistent eco bonus. Feitorias are pretty gimmicky, organ guns are pretty gimmicky, so it's just not something I can really feel comfortable putting into S tier, but they are still a very strong civ on these sorts of closed maps. You do have Arbalests as well. Saracens. Going to be putting them in B tier. You can go for some like market abuse, quick castle age, all that stuff. You have really good monks. You have just a lot of very strong options with the civ, but you just don't really have that sort of persistent economic bonus. And other than camels, you don't really have that amazing military bonus either. It's a strong civ, has a lot of different options, but it just sort of lacks that power level, like that raw power level, to really match a lot of the units and economies that we see in the A and S tier civs. Slavs, A tier. Speaking of which, they have a very strong economy and a very strong army. Who would have thought? Yeah, your boom is insane. Boyars are getting buffed in the next patch, so those guys I think can maybe see a bit more play late game on Arena. But infantry with Druzhina, super strong. Cheap siege, super strong. They're not S tier because they lack amazing answers to ranged units other than siege onagers. They don't have bombard cannons, which is kind of a pain. And it's kind of a similar story between Slavs and Celts. Great infantry, great siege, but you lack strong ranged units and you lack gunpowder. Bulgarians too, to some extent. So yeah, kind of all in the same boat there. Spanish, also going to be A tier. Yeah, conquistadors are still really good. Fun fact. And if you are able to, get a bunch of aggression early on in mid game, and then just keep your opponent on the back foot, and then drop forward castles and then kill them, that's very deadly still with Spanish. You have great monks, so you can just play that. Faster building town centers. I mean, it's not Sicilians, right? But it's still decent. And yeah, I mean, Spanish, they're still good. They have a ton of options. The full trash tech tree. They have siege rams. They have bombard cannons. They have bombard towers. Lots of good options with Spanish. They still lack that more consistent eco bonus to really put them into S tier, but they are still, in my opinion, a very strong A tier option. Tatars. I'm going to put them in C tier. I feel like they're kind of like Magyars. You don't get to make any use of their hill bonus, which is kind of sad on Arena, but you do have the sheepers that you get with longer lasting food, and then you get extra ones when you build more town centers, and that can be really nice in your mid game. And then late game, you have very tanky hussars and cav archers, and you have keshiks. You do have bombard towers with this civ. It's something I feel like a lot of people forget, is that, yes, Tatars actually have bombard towers. And then you do have halberdiers, even if they don't have much armor. They at least have squires, which is really important, and they exist. Again, very important, siege ram, all that good stuff. So yeah, I still think Tatars are a C tier civ. They're not awful. Teutons, S tier easily. One of the very, very best arena civilizations, in my opinion. They just, again, it's a very slow, heavy civ that just lends itself super well to arena. Units resisting conversion is amazing in mid-game. Then you have extra armor for your infantry and cavalry, and then you have a strong eco with your cheaper farms, and then you have gunpowder. You have crenellation castles, which can outrange all bombard cannons except for Turks. And you have just, great halbs, siege onagers, bombard cannons, ironclad is great. Teutonic knights can be situationally useful. You just are a very, very powerful civilization in Teutons. You do have some weak matchups to like civs that have very good ranged options, but they are still, in my opinion, one of, if not the best arena civ these days. Turks, actually one of those civs that I think has a pretty good matchup against Teutons. They are also going to be S tier. Free light cav, that's good. Then you have faster working gold miners, great for like everything. Cav archers can be really good. All of your gunpowder options can be great. Janissaries can be great. Missing halberdier, or missing even pikemen and elite skirmisher, it can be really bad in super long games, but with Turks, it's all about getting that sort of momentum in mid-game and like early Imperial Age to just sort of like pressure down your opponent. And you can keep Hussar spam going for quite a while with that extra Pierce armor, and it can be a strong option. And yeah, Turks, they're not like, I would say like the super highest of S tier, but they're still a very strong civ nonetheless, and very much worthy of S tier. Vietnamese, A tier. Their eco is pretty good. Not needing the wood cost for eco upgrades is very nice. Their rattan archers can be really sick. You have arbalests, but you do miss siege ram. You miss blast furnace, which is kind of annoying. And it does feel like Britons in many ways do what Vietnamese do, but a little bit better. Vietnamese do have bombard cannon, which is very nice, but they still just don't really feel quite as over the top as some of the S tier civs, like either economically or militarily. Imp scrims can be nice in long games, but again, that's only in like super long games. And then we have Vikings. Vikings will be in C tier. They're very much like a one-trick pony. They're similar to like Chinese and Khmer in that insane eco, but they just die so hard to many, many late game compositions. And I think the difference between Chinese, Khmer, and Vikings, like Chinese and Khmer do have strong late game options, even if they are, weak to siege onagers. Vikings, they just don't have any strong late game army compositions, at least past Berserk and Siege Ram. But it's like, okay, you go for like a fast imp into Arbalest timing, which is still can totally kill people, don't get me wrong. But if you're facing a civ like Byzantines, it's like, they are, because of their cheap imp, they're still getting their own fast, comparable Imperial Age time, and then they just make skirmishers and bombard cannons, and then you die. And then, okay, I switch into Berserks, and then they go cataphracts. Or, Malay can totally keep up economically, and they have way better military options than Vikings. And yeah, I do feel like Vikings, they're just not really the greatest arena civ out there. They are very easy to play, which is why I think a lot of people really like them, but I just don't think their power level is quite high enough. Your monks are awful. You have no gunpowder, and that's a little bit sad. Of course, we do have Burgundians and Sicilians, but I'm going to need to do some magic Ornlu editing stuff, so give me one moment while I do that. Alrighty, so with the power of crappy Ornlu editing, we now have Burgundians and Sicilians on the tier list. Burgundian's going to be an S tier, going to round out our S tier right there. No surprise, I think, to anybody, their eco is insane. Flemish Revolution is a silly tech. Don't use it against archer civs. I think a lot of players at the top level have shown us that doing that is a bad idea. The tech isn't that broken. But if you're against a civ that doesn't have super strong ranged options, you are going to be on a one-way trip to Frown Town. And then you have the cheap Paladins, or the cheap upgrades and early research for Paladins. Your relic bonus is amazing. In generating extra food, it just sort of further compounds with your amazing eco. And then the gold generation from farms is also super good in late game. You have great gunpowder. They're just like supercharged Franks in a lot of ways when it comes to arena specifically. And then lastly, we have Sicilians, who are going to be in A tier, doing pretty nicely, I would say, after their buffs. Not the most popular civ out there. A little bit like Bulgarians and Celts and Slavs and the whole infantry and siege identity-ish sort of thing. But donjons can be really deadly. Sergeants are pretty dang strong. 85 HP, 4 armor. I mean, those guys are freaking tanks. Then you have fully upgraded siege rams, fully upgraded siege onagers, and then you have the farms, which last like forever in late game, and that's really nice. Your eco is pretty decent in that your town centers build super fast. Gets you like a couple extra villagers per town center in a lot of cases. So yeah, I think that they are probably still a little underrated as far as arena goes, but still definitely not a S tier by any means. So that's going to be our tier list for arena guys in, July of 2021. So hope you all enjoyed. Definitely let me know what your favorite arena civs are in the comment section below, and leave a like if you enjoyed it, all that stuff, and I will see you all next time.